Okay, we're back in the shop today. It warmed up today. It's around 50 degrees. And basically what I'm doing is I had originally when I kind of did the PRP seat project last year, I just cut a real quick NOMO hole, NMO style connector for this antenna. And then I added these bars later, which caused this problem, which I mitigated with a piece of plastic around it. Since then I've got another antenna, one that I like better. This is a Tram 1181. This is a dual band antenna. Should work really well, or as good as can be working in a RZR with a dual band radio. The big reasons I got it because it's a little bit tougher. It's got a little knurled section here where this has a really large coil and plastic. I haven't really had any trouble with this other than I've already lost one of the set screws. This antenna is obviously a lot longer, taller than this one. I doubt I'll get the same performance. Really doesn't matter. I'll probably take this once I get this mounted, and what I've done is I've decided to mount this here on these back rear tubes, which weren't there when I originally installed this antenna. So I'm going to mount a tab, weld on a tab back here, and mount that about right there. That way the antenna is not too tall to get in my toy hauler. It should come out about right height. As you can see here, they're almost identical in height. The main thing is this one will be black. I really didn't like the chrome piece hanging up. I didn't really like the looks of that antenna. Although I have no complaints. This is a really good. This is made by Browning. And it's a really good antenna for a dual band. Once I get this mounted, I'm going to take it up to the shop, or up to the electronics garage, and I'll get out the spectrum analyzer and tracking gen and actually tune this antenna as best you can. You're not going to get really any good standing wave ratios on a RZR typically, because there's not a huge ground plane. The antennas still work, but they don't work to optimum level. But here, the main thing I'm looking for is, this should be relatively safe here. These come off really easy, so if you see a bad place or something like that, you can take them off. And just testing this antenna, it'll almost go to a full 90. So if I do hit something, or it shouldn't really cause a problem. The only real trouble that I've had with these, and I have something similar on my truck, is these little coil sections a lot of times will catch on a branch and really put a lot of pressure on it. This is all, the lower section of this is all brass, so it doesn't have any plastic. Okay, I'll just let you take a quick look at my little template here. This is what I've got, and I've taken this and traced this onto a piece of steel. And even though most of y'all have seen my videos, I could just hammer this out in Fusion 360 and let the mill do all the work, but today I'm not going to do that. I've got a 3/4 inch bit. That's what size you need for the NOMO, set up in an old Delta drill press. We're going to pop a hole in that, and then we'll start shaping the piece of steel to fit this. And then eventually we'll clear some of this paint off, and we'll use the Power MIG Lincoln welder, and we'll weld that on. I'll have to dig it out over there. Okay, well, I'm going to get started, and I'll move the camera over to the drill press and show that operation. Okay, as you can see, I've just got this loose. I do have it in a vise in case it comes loose. This is something I can let go of. And we're just going to pop a hole in this. There's our hole. Okay, got our hole drilled. Again, a million different ways of doing this. Probably the easiest way I have is I could have just plasma cut this. And basically what I've done is I've just used a grinder, and I'm going to use this handheld bandsaw. and just cut the pattern here that I need, and then I'll grind it to shape. Again, you know, I'm not really looking for perfection here. I just want a good solid mount for that no-mo to mount to. I'm probably going to have to reduce the thickness of this in an area. I may do something a little more advanced for that. I'm going to go ahead and get this cut, and it's kind of a weird shape because the pipe is at an angle. Okay, that made pretty quick work of it. I'm just going to take this over to the grinder real quick and clean it up. Okay, I'm just going to kind of test this. Test fit. That's probably within 1/8 of an inch. I'm going to take a little bit off the back here when I grind this off. Kind of bring that in. And what I'm shooting for is to actually have this antenna. I think I'm going to have plenty of clearance if I set this hole to the back. I can get this where I want it. And that's probably the ideal position. So I'm just going to take this back to the grinder and take a few trips to grind this off, and we should kind of be able to get some of this paint off, and we'll tack this on. The big thing I need to test is, again, on this this mount. This is probably not going to reach all the way through this hole. No, it's going to leave maybe a thread and a half above. So I'll probably do something on the mill, or I may even put this in the lathe and just face this down just a bit where that nut bolts to. Okay, we got this face down a little bit. I only took off enough to get maybe another thread or two. Nope. But basically what you want is this needs to be able to screw on and tighten down like so. And it doesn't have to go all the way down, especially if you've got a spring loaded. This one is spring loaded, and so is the new one. But you definitely want to make sure it's touching in the base. And really the main thing is you don't want a lot of dirt or water to get inside of here. These come with little O-rings, and you can use those to kind of keep the dirt and water out. But this is kind of going to go something like this. So it would basically be attached, and we'd have our antenna screwed onto this piece. And so I'm going to keep fitting this. This is getting really close. It's weldable now. And I'm considering maybe giving it just a little bit of back tilt. Even though that may look funny, that'll kind of give it a little bit better approach angle on any trees or limbs. But that's pretty close. That's probably just a few degrees back tilt, and definitely we should be easy to weld with this tubing. Okay, we've got everything covered up with some cardboard. Definitely don't want any of these welding sparks to go down on one of my seats. We're just going to get this tacked into place here. Okay, that looks good. We just need to weld it up. welded on. Got a little bit of cleanup to do on the bottom. That should be the right angle. Just want to take a look at it here, just to make sure got it sitting where I want it. That looks pretty good. So I'm going to clean this up and we'll put some roll bar paint on it and get to working on getting the antenna mounted and getting it all wired up. Okay, we got it all sprayed up. It didn't take very long. Basically, this is pretty much what I use on everything. This is, you can get this in any audio parts store, but it's a pretty good match for all the stock black Polaris stuff. And it's really easy to blend in. Flat black's not too bad to blend in. So I've painted the old hole. I've got this painted. It's almost dry now. I'm gonna let it harden probably for an hour or two, and then I'm actually gonna put the Nomo mount through the hole and tighten it down and get the antenna on, and then I'm gonna work on the radio side. Okay, most of this paint's dried, especially this top here. If you're wondering how to get those on and off, I've always used a 1-inch wrench. There's flats that you tighten, and I'm just going to get this pretty tight here. I don't want it coming off, or I want to be able to unscrew the antenna without interfering with this. Okay, so now I can, you really don't want to coil this wire up. So more than likely, I'm actually going to pull some of this back through the roll bar mount. As you can see here, I've got about a foot or so. I'll pull that back towards the radio and actually trim that off and put a new connector on. Okay, I basically got it cut loose at the front. I can pull back and forth. It goes all the way up to the front roll bar. I do run this through the roll bar. What I'm going to do is basically just kind of get this attached, and always when I'm running wires, you attach it at one end and kind of work through the machine. So I'm going to work from here back towards the radio, and then whatever spare that I have down at the radio, I'll probably just trim that off, put on a new connector. If you notice, when you do the tie straps, don't really ratchet down them. Get them snug, but you don't want to like crush the coax or any other cables that you may have. This is probably running about 7 inches before it actually goes up into the roll bar. I'm going to go up front and pull that slack out. That should be it. A lot cleaner. See if I can find the antenna here and we'll get it on. This should have a slight lean back, like I said before. If I need to change that, it's welded good enough to where this metal is fairly mandible, and I've got probably a good inch where I can make a little slight adjustment to it if I need to. And if you end up having to face your metal, make sure you face it on the bottom side. The reason being is this sets on top of a seal, so you want the top to be as flat as possible. Now the NMO mounts are designed to go on like curved surfaces of like cars, just minor surfaces that are curved, but you definitely don't want to have too regular surface on the top. This should work well. Basically, I did all of my milling on the back side. So that the foot would actually go up and I would have more threads sticking through the piece of metal. And this is the seal. Okay, worked out perfect. That looks a heck of a lot better than what I had on before. And now most of the antenna's up above all this roll bar. I'm not going to have anything bouncing around. That's never going to touch that plastic. And I should be able to basically almost get to the roof line in flatness driving on the trail. And as you can see, that mount is very, very stable. It's not going anywhere. Okay, this is where the serious bit comes in. I got the antenna on the razor, or place the connector. I've got a spectrum analyzer and a tracking gem, along with something to measure return loss. And we're going to analyze this antenna and see what it's tuned to and tune it. This is way easier than looking at your SWR. And this tells you exactly what kind of frequency response you're getting from an antenna. Okay, I just went and got one of my little RF adapters. Okay, basically I've run the test and I see basically I have two main lobes, one in the VHF and one in the UHF. It should deliver better than 2.5 SWR across all the frequencies that I want to do. I'm going to try to tune it just a little bit, actually higher in the UHF, but it's not going to make a huge amount of difference. So this antenna is going to work. I'm not going to get great performance, but I'm also not going to damage the radio. Okay, we've been doing a little bit of tuning here. Right now, here are the two. This is a dual band antenna, so our optimal frequency is 151.7 on the low end, and optimal on the top end is going to be 314.3. So this is performing a lot better in the VHF than the UHF, which is fine, because typically I'm using VHF. I'm going to do a little bit more work to try to get these more centered along the frequencies that I want. I'm an extra class ham operator, so basically I'm wanting to get this antenna immediately over the main ham frequencies. I've done really quick testing to see how much output power that I'm getting. I'm actually getting about 17 watts out of this radio to the antenna, which is plenty of wattage with a little bit of return. And again, I just kind of give you a close-up of our end result. One thing that I discovered, this has a knurled grip, and if you actually twist on the antenna, again, this is that tram unit, you can actually take the antenna off relatively easy. And I apologize for the traffic. Electronic lab is a lot closer to the road. But anyway, it's getting dark. I'm really happy with the way this turned out. Kind of give you an idea. That's what it looks like on the razor. The paint turned out really nice. You really can't discern. This is where the paint stops, and it's all the same color. So that roll bar paint works really well on the razor. Black roll bar parts. But we basically got our cable up. We've got a new end. I'm just going to go through real quick. I've got other videos on RF stuff, and I realize a lot of people are not going to have access to this. But if you do have a razor and you know a ham person, more than likely they have something like this, or at least a watt meter that's directional. And what this will tell you is how much is my radio putting out to the antenna, and then you can actually measure how much power is getting reflected. And I'll show you that here real quick. Okay, so this is our antenna and this is our radio. I'm on a UHF frequency right now, test frequency. And right now, when I keep the mic, you don't see any power, which is good. And I'm on low power right now, and I keep the mic, and it's going to be hard to see in the dark. We're getting about 5 watts out on low power, and that's stronger than any FRS radio. And that's generally what I run in the razor unless I really need to reach out and get someone. I'll just up the power here just to show you. Man, Man, that's really hard to read. It's getting dark. So this is the high power mode in UHF. And we're getting about 15 watts out. And still really, well, maybe a watt of reflection or reflected power. Anyway, it's getting really dark. Just kind of wanted to show you how this works. One thing that I'll mention, if you've never seen one of these hydraulic crimpers, I think I got this at Harbor Freight or Northern Tool, but these things work great. Here's the end result. It's not too dark. I'm going to pull this off just so you can see what it looks like. But that is an excellent crimp. It's got a really good pattern, and it provides uniform pressure around the whole thing. It's more of a square than a normal crimp, which works out really well. It should hold that connector on really well. Anyway, I hope you like the videos, and hope this is helpful for someone else putting a radio on their RZR. I've done a previous video on this radio. This is a waterproof radio specifically for the motorcycle ATV market that TYT makes. Love it. It works really well. I've had it for over a year now with no issues, and it's survived washes. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe, please like. I will probably, I think this is it for the RZR, the last project before the season starts. So more than likely I may do a couple of riding videos this year if something breaks, but this pretty much is the end of the beginning of the season work for me. Thanks again. We'll see you soon.